The refrigerated unit kept cycling even after I eased the truck onto the shoulder. That steady mechanical breathing you stop noticing until the rest of the world goes quiet. It was September 2014 on US Highway 83 through Nebraska's Sandhills, and the night was the kind that makes distance feel dishonest. No porch lights, no town glow, just my headlights cutting a pale tunnel through grass-covered dunes that rolled away like a dark ocean. I'd been watching for deer and watching my mirrors, trying to stay awake without pushing my speed, when a man stepped out of the darkness ahead and raised one hand like he owned the road. He didn't wave the way stranded people wave. He held his palm up like a traffic controller, reflective vest, hard hat silhouette, clipboard under one arm, and a posture that made you want to comply before you even understood what was being asked. I rolled to a stop with my hazards on, brakes set, hands on the wheel. The reefer kept running behind me, the red glow of its little display bouncing faintly off the inside of my mirrors. He didn't ask my name. He didn't ask where I'd come from. He quoted the seal number on my trailer and the delivery address, then told me the bridge up the road had failed and the county was diverting heavy trucks off the highway. His voice stayed calm, like a checkpoint, like paperwork. There was another rig farther up, idling with its doors shut. I recognized it because I'd seen the driver at the last truck stop in Valentine, joking about making time and pushing north. Now he wasn't answering his phone, and the cab sat dark like it had been abandoned on purpose. The man ordered both trucks to follow a dirt detour into the dunes. The detour ended at an abandoned gravel pit that looked like it had been left to rot. A scale platform, a leaning little scale house, chain-link gate pushed open, and a box truck parked at an angle near the building. Under my headlights, the man's equipment finally made sense in the worst way. The vest wasn't official. The clipboard wasn't official. The light bar on his pickup wasn't even mounted straight. When he brought his hand down, I saw the gun in it, held low, steady, like it was just another tool. One driver tried to run back to his cab. The shot echoed once across the pit, sharp and final. I was the other driver, and the only reason I'm telling this is because I made it behind the wheel and aimed for the only exit, knowing the road would either save me or bury me. People like tidy stories, where the warning signs are obvious and the choices are clean. This wasn't like that. It was a night built out of small pressures, deadlines, fatigue, money, and the way an empty highway can make you accept things you'd argue with in daylight. So if you want to understand how it happened, you have to start earlier, when it still felt like a normal run. At the time, I was 38, behind on payments, and working every extra mile I could get. I drove for a small carrier based out of Kansas City. Nothing fancy, no big national contracts, no spare trucks sitting around. We stayed alive on-time deliveries and customers who paid within 30 days, and if you were late, you heard about it. If you damaged a load, you heard about it longer. I wasn't proud of how tight things were, but I was honest about it. When dispatch offered a night haul that paid a little better, I took it without thinking too hard. That afternoon, I picked up a refrigerated load in North Platte. Frozen medical supplies, sealed and tagged for a clinic distribution hub farther north. The warehouse wasn't huge, but it ran like a place that couldn't afford mistakes. They checked my tractor number, checked the trailer number, checked my insurance, checked the reefer set point, and watched me like I was personally responsible for the state of healthcare in the upper Midwest. The shipping guy slid the paperwork across the counter and told me, half joking and half not, to keep the trailer doors shut, keep the fuel topped off, and don't kill the unit. He said it like a joke, but he didn't smile. He cinched a plastic seal through the latch and read the number out loud, then wrote it again on the bill of lading. I wrote it down too, on the bill and on the back of my hand, because fatigue does weird things to memory, and I didn't want to be the guy arguing about a seal number at a receiver dock at 2 a.m. I did a full walk around. Lights, tires, airlines, mud flaps, trailer hinges, reefer fuel level. I watched the reefer cycle, listened for a steady rhythm, and checked the temperature readout twice. Then, I rolled out northbound, watching the flat land slowly turn into those long, pale hills that look soft until you're stuck in them. My plan was simple. One stop in Valentine for fuel, coffee, and a restroom, then keep moving. I wasn't trying to set any records. I was trying to arrive intact, with the reefer still running and the seal still unbroken, so I could get paid and go home without another conversation about how thin the margins were. Valentine has one of those truck stops that looks like it got placed there to catch people who misjudge distance. The lot held a handful of rigs and a few pickups, and the wind was pushing sand across the asphalt in thin sheets, like the Sandhills didn't care what you built on top of them. Inside, the clerk wore a faded sweatshirt and moved like she'd been on her feet since dawn. She wasn't rude, but she had the tired, guarded look of someone who has seen enough weird behavior to keep her opinions to herself. Near the door was a bulletin board with local ads, church dinners, and 3 missing person flyers. 2 of them were men. Both were shown in driver's license photos with tired eyes and that neutral background you get at a DMV. One had a beard, one didn't. The caption said last seen on Highway 83, both driving commercial trucks. The 3rd flyer was a teenage girl from a nearby town, last seen walking from a gas station. That one hit me harder, not because it was more tragic in a dramatic sense, but because it meant someone could vanish even with people around, even under fluorescent lights, even with cameras. A guy about my age stood at the coffee station. Work jacket, ball cap, face like he'd been awake too long. He looked at the flyers, then at me, and it wasn't small talk when he spoke. "You headed north?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Rapid City area." He nodded like he'd already decided something. "Same direction for me. I'm Dustin." "I'm Marcus," I said. The clerk overheard. She didn't like the attention, but she answered anyway, because drivers ask and clerks hear things. "State Patrol's been around all week," she said. "They say it's nothing. Folks say it's not." Dustin looked at her. "Nothing like what?" She pointed with her chin toward the highway, the gesture of someone who didn't want to be seen participating. Trucks found parked, doors shut, drivers gone, phones left behind. That's all I know. I didn't have a good reply, so I said the practical thing drivers say when they're trying to keep the world predictable. Could be drugs, could be someone ditching their job, could be 100 things. The clerk gave me a look that said I sounded like a man trying to calm himself. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. Dustin and I walked back out together. The wind slapped my jacket and carried grit into my teeth. He glanced at my trailer as I passed. "Reefer?" he asked. "Yeah, medical." He nodded again. "You mind if we run the same stretch for a while? 2 sets of eyes." It wasn't friendship. It was math, night highway, empty country. Flyers on a bulletin board. I said yes. We rolled out within minutes of each other. He stayed back far enough to stop if I did something stupid, close enough that I could see his lights in my mirrors whenever the road dipped. For a while, it actually made me feel better. The highway was empty, the sky was clear, and the Sandhills looked like sleeping animals under the starlight. Every so often, I'd see a ranch turn off or a fence line disappear into darkness. I kept my speed steady, checked my gauges, listened to the reefer cycle, and told myself the missing flyers were probably something mundane I didn't want to imagine. Around 10:15 p.m., I saw the first thing that didn't belong. A portable warning board sat on the shoulder, the kind that folds up on a trailer and flashes an amber message. At a distance, it looked legitimate. As I got closer, the message resolved into words that made my stomach tighten. "Bridge out ahead. Detour." The board was angled slightly wrong, like whoever set it up hadn't bothered to square it to oncoming traffic. That by itself could have been nothing. People get sloppy at night. But a bridge doesn't go out quietly. Not without news, not without barricades, not without a cluster of pickups with county markings and workers in actual hard hats doing actual work. I slowed anyway, because the last thing a driver wants is to put 80,000 pounds into a hole and become the reason a highway stays closed for a week. Dustin's headlights closed the gap behind me as he reacted to my brake lights. A second marker sat farther up, reflective stripes and a big arrow pointing right. Beyond it, a pickup was parked at an angle, partially blocking the lane. A man stood beside it in a reflective vest, one hand raised in that same flat-palmed stop gesture. The pickup had a light bar, but it didn't have the clear markings you'd expect if it belonged to a county fleet. No numbers, no emblem, just a generic shape in the dark. I stopped with hazards on. The reefer kept working behind me, steady and stubborn. The man approached my door, staying on the driver's side, but not too close. His face stayed turned slightly away from my headlights, which is a small thing, but it mattered later, because it meant he understood how light works. He understood what it takes to keep a driver from getting a clean look. "Evening," he said. I cracked the window a few inches, enough to talk, not enough for hands. "Bridge got undermined," he said. "County's diverting heavies." "Since when?" I asked. "Couple hours," he said. And then he did something that changed the whole temperature of the cab. "You're Marcus, right?" My hands tightened on the wheel. I didn't answer. He stayed calm. "Marcus Vela, Prairie Line Transport, sealed trailer, delivery to the clinic hub. Seal number ends in 7. My mouth went dry in a way I couldn't control. There's a difference between a stranger guessing and a stranger reciting. He wasn't fishing. He was confirming. In my mirror, I saw Dustin's rig roll up behind me and stop. His cab tipped forward slightly as he looked past my trailer. The man in the vest lifted a clipboard like it was normal. "I need to verify your paperwork and get you on the right road," he said. "There's a pit access route that'll take you around." Dustin called out from his cab, voice muffled by glass but sharp. "Hey, where's the county truck?" The man didn't look back at Dustin. He kept his attention on me, like Dustin was background noise. "Down the detour," he said. "We're staging. You'll see it." I swallowed and forced my voice to stay even. "How do you know my name?" He nodded toward the side of my door. "It's printed on your placard. Company keeps it big." That was true, and I hated it. I also knew, even then, that the placard didn't explain the delivery address and seal details. It explained enough to give him cover. It didn't explain the rest. "What county are you with?" I asked. He paused a fraction, like the question annoyed him because it required creativity. "This one," he said. It was the kind of answer a person gives when they don't actually have an answer, but don't want to sound defensive. The clipboard shifted. The vest caught my headlights and threw them back at me. "You want through? I need your bill of lading," he said. "Just the top page." Every part of me wanted to refuse. Another part wanted to keep moving and pretend this was normal. That's the trap, right there. The way a normal transaction can keep you from making the ugly decision, the one where you stop being polite. I chose the middle. I kept the window barely open. "You can read it through the glass." His tone stayed friendly, but it hardened underneath. "Can't. Need the seal number confirmed. Need your signature on the detour sheet. State gets picky about refrigerated medical loads." That line hit hard because it sounded informed. It sounded like someone who had handled shipments and understood what drivers worry about. Dustin leaned on his horn once, a short, impatient blast, and I watched the man's head tilt, not toward Dustin, but toward the darkness ahead, like he was checking something. "Bridge is out," he said again. "You can either take my detour or you can sit here until daylight." I lifted my phone and saw no signal. I looked past him. The pickup had no obvious unit number, no decal. The light bar looked like the kind you buy for a personal vehicle if you want to pretend you're official. I should have stayed put. I should have told Dustin to back up, and we'd both turn around, and if the bridge really was out, we'd find out the normal way, with barricades and detour signs that didn't feel like a stage set. But the road was empty. The night was deep. My reefer load had a clock on it, and the idea of sitting on the shoulder for hours with no signal did something to my judgment. I wanted to keep moving. He offered movement. "All right," I said. "Show me." He pointed right. "Take this county road, 2 miles. You'll see a reflector post with orange tape. Turn again. Follow the tire tracks. Don't stop." Dustin keyed his radio and said something I couldn't hear through my closed cab. The man stepped back and gave me room. "Keep it moving," he said. "Your buddy, too." I eased forward and turned onto the county road. Sand crunched under my tires. The road narrowed fast and the surface changed from packed to soft. The dunes pressed close and my headlights lit beige slopes and scrub grass that looked like it could swallow a vehicle whole if you drifted off the track. For the first half mile, it still looked plausible, like ranch access, like something a county might designate in an emergency. Then it got worse. The ruts deepened. The shoulder vanished. The darkness felt closer. I didn't see reflector posts. I didn't see orange tape. I saw tire tracks that could have been from anything, and I saw my own tires throwing sand in a way that told me the truck was working harder than it should. The reefer cycled again, louder now, like it was trying to keep up. Dustin closed the gap behind me. His headlights bounced as he hit ruts, and I imagined him in his cab doing the same math I was doing. If we turn around now, we have to back these big rigs out on a narrow, soft road in the dark. If we keep going, maybe we pop out onto a hard surface and laugh about it at the next stop. The road dipped into a depression, and suddenly, shapes appeared ahead. A scale platform, a small-scale house, a chain-link gate pushed open, a gravel pit, abandoned enough that the weeds had started reclaiming the edges, but not abandoned enough to look ancient. A box truck sat near the scale house, angled like it had just rolled in and stopped. No county trucks, no work lights, no crew. Just one man standing in my headlights again, like he'd been waiting the whole time. He waved me forward with the same calm hand, and as I rolled closer, I saw the handgun in his right hand, held low, not hidden at all now. He didn't need to hide it because we weren't on the highway anymore. We were in his place. I stopped with my bumper just shy of the scale platform. Dustin stopped behind me. The reefer kept cycling. The man walked up and spoke like he was reading off a receipt. "Out," he said. I didn't move. He raised the gun slightly. "Out, both of you, hands where I can see." Dustin opened his door first, maybe thinking he could talk his way out, maybe thinking compliance bought time. He climbed down with his hands up. I climbed down slow, boots crunching on gravel, mouth so dry my tongue felt thick. The wind had a sharp edge now, pushing sand across the pit in little skittering waves. "Keys on the ground," the man said. "Phones too." I dropped my keys. I placed my phone beside them. Dustin did the same. The man pulled white zip ties from his pocket, the thick kind, and gestured at my wrists. "Turn around." I turned. The plastic bit into my skin as he cinched it tight. He did Dustin next, quick and practiced, like this wasn't his first time and he didn't need to think about the mechanics. Then he walked us toward the scale house, guns still low but always oriented in a way that reminded you where the consequences lived. Inside the scale house, the air smelled like old paper and mouse droppings. There was a desk, a leaning filing cabinet, and a stack of bills of lading spread out like someone had been sorting them. I saw a wallet on the desk, then another. I saw driver's license photos, and my stomach sank because I recognized two of them from the bulletin board back in Valentine. Same tired eyes, same neutral background. The missing men weren't an abstract rumor anymore. Their IDs were right there like trophies. Dustin saw it too. His breathing went fast. He whispered, "Those guys." The man's head turned slightly. "Quiet." He shoved Dustin toward a corner and then looked at me. "You're going to open the trailer." "That's sealed medical freight," I said, because I didn't know what else to say and my brain was still clinging to rules. He shrugged like rules were just suggestions. "Not for long." Dustin tried again, voice shaking. "Just take the load. Let us go." The man's face stayed unreadable in the dim light. He didn't look angry. He didn't look excited. He looked like someone doing a job he'd decided needed doing. "Can't," he said. That one word landed heavier than the gun. It meant this wasn't a robbery where you got unlucky. It meant we were inventory. He marched us back outside. The wind had picked up, sand sliding across the gravel like it wanted to erase footprints. He pointed the gun at Dustin. "You, walk to your cab. Open your door." Dustin took 2 steps, hesitated, then did something I still replay in my head. He spun and ran, straight at his truck, moving like a man who'd decided he'd rather risk everything than wait for whatever "can't" meant. The shot came fast. One sharp crack in the open air. Dustin stumbled near his steps and went down hard. He didn't get back up. There was no dramatic pause, no yelling, no second shot. Just the wind, the reefer cycling, and the reality of how quickly a decision can end. I stood there with my hands tied behind me, watching my brain try to reject what my eyes had already accepted. The man didn't rush to Dustin. He didn't check him. He just looked at me like I'd been promoted to cooperative by default. "Now," he said, "you'll do what I say." He walked me to my trailer doors and scooped my keys off the gravel where I'd dropped them. He kept the gun trained on my back while he unlocked the trailer handle with my own key. He stared at the seal like it offended him, then cut it with a small set of cutters and tossed the severed plastic into the dirt. "Open it," he said. I pulled the doors open. Cold air rolled out and hit my face like a slap, clean and sharp. My breath fogged for a second in the reefer light. He nodded toward the box truck by the scale house. "You're going to help me transfer it," he said. "One pallet at a time." I looked at Dustin's still body and forced the words out. "He's dead." The man finally glanced over, like he was checking the weather. Yes, I needed time. I needed one chance to create a problem he hadn't planned for. I kept my voice small. "My hands are tied." He stepped closer and angled the gun up, not wildly, just enough to make the point. "Don't make me fix that." He reached into my pocket and pulled out my folding knife, the cheap one I used for straps and shrink wrap. He looked at it for a second, then slid it into his own pocket like he was collecting tools. Then he cut my zip ties off, but the gun stayed up now, and his eyes stayed on my hands. "Work fast," he said. I climbed into the trailer and started moving boxes to the edge. My hands shook, so I forced them steady by focusing on small tasks. Grip, lift, step, set down. The freight was boxed and labeled, packed to keep temperature stable. I could feel the cold in my forearms as I worked. He stayed outside watching the pit road more than he watched me, which told me something important. He didn't feel safe. He expected someone to appear. He expected trouble. That meant he could be distracted. On my third trip down, I dragged my boot on the door frame and knocked a metal load bar loose. It fell inside with a heavy clang that didn't belong. He flinched, just a fraction. Not fear, exactly. More like irritation and reflex. I used that fraction and stepped sideways, putting myself between him and the scale house. I nodded toward my cab. "Let me grab my gloves," I said. "These boxes are slick." He hesitated, then nodded once, impatient. "Go." I walked toward my cab like I belonged there. I kept my shoulders loose. I kept my pace normal. If you sprint, you become a target. If you move like you're doing what you were told, people let you get closer to the thing you need. Inside my cab, low by the seat, I had a cheap seatbelt cutter mounted near the floor. Drivers keep them for wrecks, for emergencies, for the stuff you don't want to imagine. I snapped it free and held it in my hand, not because I thought it would win a fight, but because it made me feel less empty. Then I did the one thing he couldn't tolerate. I started the truck. The engine caught. The cab vibrated. The reefer note changed pitch as power stabilized. Outside, the man shouted, and his boots hit gravel as he ran toward my door. I shoved it into gear and rolled forward, aiming straight for the open gate, because that was the only line that mattered. He fired once. The round punched into the door panel with a hard metallic pop, and I felt a sting of fear so sharp it almost took the wheel out of my hands. I didn't stop. I hit the gate post and shoved it aside, chain link scraping along the trailer like a scream. The trailer fishtailed on loose gravel, but it followed, heavy and obedient. I got onto the pit access road and pushed the truck harder than I should have. The road was narrow and soft, and the steering wheel fought me. Sand grabbed at the tires. The front end wandered. Every correction felt delayed by the weight behind me. In my mirror, headlights flared. The box truck moved. He'd gotten into it. He came after me. I told myself a box truck couldn't keep up with a tractor trailer on a straight highway, but we weren't on a highway. We were on a sandy access road that punished weight and rewarded shorter wheelbases. He wasn't trying to pass me. He was trying to stay close enough that I couldn't relax. A dark strip lay across the road ahead, not a shadow. Something placed. My headlights caught a dull metallic line and the shape of something like angled steel. I didn't have room to avoid it. The tires hit it and the truck lurched. The steering went heavy and a front tire blew with a sound like a giant hand clapping once. The rims started chewing the ground. The truck pulled right toward a ditch, and for a second, I thought I was going to roll it and end up trapped upside down in sand while he walked up and finished whatever he considered unfinished. I fought it straight long enough to reach a ranch entrance with a wide cattle guard. I dropped speed, eased over, and let the truck slide into a shallow ditch beyond, nose down, trailer still upright. The engine kept running. The reefer kept cycling like it didn't care about human decisions. My phone showed one weak bar of signal, barely. I dialed 911, My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "I'm a truck driver. I'm off Highway 83. I got forced into a gravel pit by an armed man. Another driver's been shot. He's chasing me in a box truck. I'm in a ditch by a ranch entrance with a cattle guard." The operator didn't waste words. She asked for landmarks. I gave her the ranch sign I could see through my windshield and the rough direction, northbound. She told me to stay put, keep my hands visible if law enforcement arrived, and not to engage. That last part almost made me laugh, because engage wasn't what I'd been doing. I'd been surviving. The box truck appeared at the cattle guard and slowed. It didn't cross. That made sense in a practical way. Box trucks don't like cattle guards. Too much bounce, too much risk of losing control, too much chance of getting stuck. For a moment, I thought he might just turn around and disappear back into the Sandhills like the whole thing had been a bad dream. Then the driver door opened. He got out with the gun in his hand and walked along the fence line, using posts for cover, moving closer in short, controlled steps. He wanted me alive long enough to pull me out, and my cab door had a fresh hole that told me he wasn't running out of patience. Then headlights appeared from the south, fast and steady, and I felt something in my chest unclench for the first time in an hour. A deputy's SUV pulled onto the shoulder behind my rig. The deputy got out and stayed behind his door, doing what deputies do when they don't know what they're walking into. He called out, "Driver, keep your hands where I can see them." I leaned across the cab and shouted out the passenger window, "He's on the fence line. He's got a gun. He came from the pit road." The deputy's head snapped toward the fence line. The man froze, and I saw it in the way his posture changed. He hadn't expected a response that fast. He'd built his whole operation on isolation and time. He raised his gun toward the deputy. The deputy fired first. 2 shots, controlled, not panicked. The man flinched, dropped his weapon, and ran back toward the box truck. He got in and tried to turn around on the narrow shoulder, throwing sand and fishtailing like he was suddenly just another bad driver with a bad plan. The deputy got back in his SUV and took off after him, staying on the highway. I stayed in my ditch, breathing hard, listening to the engine idle like it always did, and listening to the reefer cycle, steady as a metronome, like the truck didn't know the difference between normal and nightmare. Within minutes, more lights arrived. State Patrol, another deputy, an ambulance. A trooper approached my cab with a flashlight held low and told me to step out slow. He kept his voice calm, like he'd done it 1,000 times, because he probably had. He asked, "Are you Marcus Vila?" I nodded. "You're safe now," he said. And I wanted to believe him, but my eyes kept tracking the fence line like the Sandhills might produce another man in a reflective vest just to prove a point. They took me to the county sheriff's office in Valentine to give my statement. The building smelled like coffee and old carpet. I sat under bright lights with a paper cup of water I didn't touch because my hands wouldn't stop trembling enough to lift it without spilling. A detective named Elaine Curtis asked questions in a steady rhythm. Where did I first see him? What did he say? What did he know? How close did he get? What did his pickup look like? Did I see any markings? Did I hear any names? I told her the part that stuck in my mind like a splinter. He knew my seal number before I showed him anything. She wrote it down without reacting. He had access to shipping paperwork, she said. Or he watched you pick it up. I didn't see anyone following me from North Platte, I said. I would have noticed. She didn't argue. She just kept writing, which was its own kind of unsettling. When someone argues, you can negotiate reality. When they just write, it means your reality fits into a folder. Near sunrise, she came back and sat across from me again. We caught him, she said. She didn't celebrate. She didn't soften it. He rolled the box truck trying to turn onto a sand track to get away from the deputy. He's alive. His name is Gordon Pritchard. He used to subcontract on county road projects years ago. He stole traffic gear. He learned how to stop commercial drivers without raising alarms. I swallowed. Dustin? Her eyes held mine. He didn't make it. I nodded once, because anything more felt useless. I'd known the moment Dustin didn't get back up, but hearing it in a calm office under fluorescent light made it permanent. Elaine slid a clear plastic bag across the table. These were found in your cab during the evidence sweep, she said. We're documenting everything. Inside the bag was a plain gold wedding ring and a driver's license that wasn't mine. The license photo matched one of the missing person flyers from the truck stop. Same tired eyes, same neutral background, same name I'd read without meaning to. I stared at it, then looked up. That wasn't in my cab. Elaine's pen stopped. You're sure? I'm sure, I said. I keep my cab clean. I would have seen it. She watched me for a long second, then sealed the bag again like the plastic could contain uncertainty. We'll log it, she said. Later that morning, they searched the gravel pit with dogs and floodlights. They found what everyone had feared. 2 missing drivers, confirmed. Dustin, confirmed. They found a filing cabinet full of bills of lading, sorted by date, like a sick form of bookkeeping, and they found stolen road signs and barricades stacked behind the scale house like stage props. The official part of the story ended there. Armed man caught, stolen gear recovered, victims found, case built. If you read it in a short article, it would sound like law enforcement did their job and the world returned to normal. But normal doesn't snap back into place that cleanly for the people who were inside it. My truck was impounded. My load was ruined. The receiver didn't care why the seal was broken. My carrier cared, because insurance cares, because paperwork cares. I spent the next days answering the same questions from different people. Troopers, detectives, insurance adjusters, company safety, dispatch. Every time I told it, the edges of the night came back. The warning board, the calm voice, the way can't sounded like a conclusion he'd reached long ago. When they finally let me leave, a deputy drove me to a motel in Valentine because they didn't want me behind the wheel. On the way, he tried to be kind in the blunt way some men are kind. You did the right things, he said. I didn't answer because I didn't feel brave. I felt used up. Surviving doesn't always come with pride. Sometimes it comes with a hollow feeling, like you got allowed to keep living and you don't know why. I lay on the motel bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the room's air conditioner click on and off. And every time it cycled, it reminded me of the reefer unit breathing behind my trailer like it was the only consistent thing in the world. I kept seeing Dustin lifting his coffee cup in that small toast, the clerk's chin pointing toward the highway, the bulletin board with the flyers. I kept thinking about how easy it had been to say yes to running the same stretch with a stranger, and how that yes had put Dustin in my mirrors. And then there was the ring. That wedding ring wasn't in my cab when I pulled into Valentine. I know my cab. I'm not a neat freak, but I'm particular. I don't like clutter on the dash. I don't leave loose items rolling under the seats. I clean it out on fuel stops because it keeps me alert and it keeps me from losing important things. A gold ring and another man's driver's license are not small items you miss for hours. Elaine logged it. Chain of custody, evidence bag, signatures. Everything done the way it's supposed to be done. But that doesn't answer the feeling that settled in my chest when she slid that bag across the table. The sense that the story still had an extra hand in it. Gordon Pritchard had built a system, and systems don't always belong to one person. Someone had to know which loads were worth stopping. Someone had to know where drivers were headed. Someone had to know how to put a warning board on a highway without getting noticed. Maybe the ring had been in my cab, and I'd been too tired to see it. Maybe it fell out of a victim's wallet during the sweep and landed where an officer later found it. Maybe it got bagged with my stuff by accident and nobody wanted to admit a mistake once paperwork started. All of those explanations are possible, and that's the problem. The possible explanations don't erase the moment. The part I can't shake is simple, and it doesn't need a conspiracy to feel wrong. That man stepped out of the dark like he owned the road, and he spoke to me like he already had my file in his head.